Political Affairs, Edo South, stated this while addressing journalists at the government house in Benin City, the Edo State capital. He alleges that the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Mr. Adams Oshomole, has consistently defied the order by organizing rallies of his own and will soon incur the wrath of the state government. On the issue of resolving the current crisis rocking the party, he maintained that the APC in Edo State will only welcome reconciliation initiated by the presidency and not the National Working Committee of the party.
We know that that ban has not been lifted, and the national chairman went ahead to...
Staying on the Imo rerun election, the leadership of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, has launched an investigation into the killing of senatorial candidate of the Action Alliance in Imo North Senatorial District, Ndubisi Aminike, who was allegedly killed by an NSCDC official attached to a VIP during the victory party held for Mariam Unoha, winner of the just concluded Okigwe North Federal Constituency election. The Imo State Commandant, Raji Ibrahim, describes the incident as a very unfortunate one. He says the agency has commenced a thorough investigation into the matter to ascertain the true cause of the action.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So let's get talking. This is a very important matter, especially coming from the leader of the Senate. And in the House of Representatives, they're also talking about it. Well, it's a lot of people will say partisanship should not be brought to national issues. But of course, you can't take away the fact that these people belong to the same party, the ruling party at the center and the National Assembly. But when they are talking about what matters to the Nigerian life, issues of security, the economy, then we need to talk about it and find a solution. Joining me tonight is the chairman of the Turaki Vanguard and the former presidential candidate, Professor Chris Nwokobia. He joins us in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And from our Abuja studio is the chieftain of the APC and a former commissioner in Adamawa State. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed Sajo, for coming on tonight. Let me begin with you. I mean, the National Assembly resuming today, and they say, look, the issue of security is bad. It used the word deteriorated. Is that the true state of things?
Very well, yes. I say this with every sense of joy that a leader of the ruling party will admit how terrible, how riotous, how turbulent, how troublesome it has become. When people talk about how bad the state of national security has become, partisans, and those are called partisan obscurantists, think that we're politicking with issues of national security. But it's never been this bad. The truth is that beyond the fact that the insurgents and Boko Haram were taking over territories a few years ago, now, if you like, terror, violent crime appears to have been democratized. If it is not insurgency in the northeast, it is banditry in some part of the north central. If it is not banditry, it is cattle rustling in some part of the north central and part of the northwest. If it is not that, it is ritual killing and kidnapping for ransom. If it is not that, it is herdsmen against farmers and vice versa. And that's where we are. The state of national security is getting worse than ever.
Prof, you've described this using some of the nicest English language that exists in a dictionary. But the question is that these things are existing, but is the government of the day living up to the responsibility?
Partisanship and, if you like, combative delusion has become the mantra of state, where the visible, that which is obvious, is almost always embellished by spokespersons of government. But it is interesting to hear the Senate president admit that it's getting worse. It is interesting to hear them say that the time to address and interrogate the state of national security is now. And I believe that it is salutary. It is better late than ever.
So we kudos to the National Assembly.
Absolutely.
Kudos
I think
to
it is
Ahmed
time
Lawan
for Lawan and his team at the level of the National Assembly to wake up the executive. The time is now for us to address, because the primary essence of governance is the protection of lives and property.
But is the executive awake to his responsibility?
They must wake up to the reality of now.
No,
as it were now, the answer is no. It's all about platitudes and promises. But the time has come for the executive to rise to the challenge.
Let me go to Mr. Ahmed Sajo. Interestingly, Mr. Ahmed Sajo, he's from Adamawa State, one of the states that is battling insurgency. You're a member of the APC, and when you hear leaders of your party talk about what is happening in the nation, for example, the Senate President said the central security system in Nigeria has failed. What do you think is happening in the country, especially when the Buhari government says security is very important to our promises? Are things really failing, or are things have failed according to the Senate President?
Well, Shegun, I don't think I heard him say fail. He said security has deteriorated. Deteriorated is not the same as failed. But let's look at it very, very positively. Any time and any day we have leadership of the country and leadership of the party admitting that there is a problem and that problem needs to be fixed is something very, very positive. There was a time, like you said, I'm from Adamawa State, I'm from the Northeast. There was a time our territories were being overrun and we were told everything was okay. There was a time my father ran away to Cameroon. My daughter got missing in the bush because my hometown was overtaken by Boko Haram, and yet government was telling us that all was quite in order. I think it's a good thing that the leadership of the country is waking up to say, look, we own up to the fact that there is something that needs to be fixed, and we are going to work towards fixing it. But I want to say that the last thing we need to play politics with is our own security. And I don't think that what the Senate is doing is playing politics with our security. They have risen above partisanship. They have risen above political grandstanding to say, look, let us look at this situation frontally in the face and find a solution. And the least we can do is to support them in working up to find the solution. Don't forget, governance in a democratic setting like ours, it's on a tripod of 3 arms of government. And each of the 3 arms had equal responsibility for governance and equal responsibility for ensuring that the citizens are safe and secure. And the fact that the National Assembly is waking up to say, look, we're going to work with the executive, it's a very, very positive thing. What I want to see, and I pray that we see it, is that the Senate President is talking about community policing. If they are going to put structures on ground for community policing, they have very good time to do it now, to work on the amendment of this
Mr. Sajo,
sections of the Constitution.
Mr. Sajo, apologies to butt in for a moment. We need to take one of our traditional breaks on the program. But when we come back, I'll come back to you. And there's some critical issues being raised. That statement made by the Senate President was yesterday when he said the central security system of the country has failed. But when we come back, we look at what the executive arm of government is doing, whether or not we're getting it right as a people. It's our lives, and we must determine whether or not where we go and how we handle it. So we take a moment, and when we come back, we'll talk more on these issues. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us and joining us again. So let's get back to the conversation. You heard the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan. Don't forget, the APC rules or is in control of the executive arm of government and, of course, is in control of the National Assembly. Senate President is of the APC, and perhaps the manner in which he is spoken, a lot of people are debating that, look, it does not look like a lot of the fears that people had, that the National Assembly may just be a rubber stamp of the executive. So they're speaking out about the major issues in the land. Let's get back to the conversation on some of the critical issues that's been raised today. Professor Chris Nwahobia is a former presidential candidate in Nigeria and the chairman of the Turaki Vanguard. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. Mr. Ahmed Sajo is in our Abuja studio, an APC chieftain and a former commissioner of information in Adamawa State. Let me come back to you, Mr. Sajo. With what has been on the ground, it does look to me that if in the manner in which the Senate President spoke today, is the trajectory in which they will go, then Nigeria is perhaps in for a good time in terms of lawmaking, because it's talked about some of the most important things for us as a people. Passage of the PIB. A lot of people have been talking about this for over a decade. The issues of community policing, the issue of electoral reform. These are very critical issues in the land. But if the present government needs to go forward, people have criticized that the security chiefs need to let go. We need to rejig our security architecture. Do you think that the executive arm of government is doing enough?
Well, let's be very clear on some issues. That the National Assembly, as presently constituted, particularly the leadership of the National Assembly and the executive branch of government, are on the same page. And when you hear the National Assembly say we are going to have a very, very robust reform of the security architecture, I believe that it's going to be across board. It's going to be a federal government policy where all the arms of government within the federation are working in tandem and on the same page. We believe that what the Senate President has said, it's absolutely true. If the security deteriorates, definitely it will affect the economy. There is no doubt about the correlation between the two. And that if the petroleum industry bill is passed, actually it's going to liberalize certain actions within the petroleum industry. It's going to increase and enhance the participation of Nigerians in the process of petroleum business. That is a very good one. And then reforming the electoral system, it's very, very germane to a very stable and healthy democracy. But I think, Sheon, let us not also make this mistake that we're making in this country. And the mistake is that we are equating election with democracy. And I think we need to go beyond just talking about elections to democratizing the entire gamut of the process of governance and the process of social interactions within the democratic space. We're just talking about elections and we're making people believe that democracy begins and ends with election. I think it should go beyond that. So we welcome the statements of the Senate President. We welcome the commitment of the National Assembly to partner effectively with the executive to ensure that we address these issues, particularly issues that have to do with security.
All right. Let me come back to Professor Okobia. Professor, the Senate President said, there is a need, an urgent need for a paradigm shift. Do you see that happen? In the style of President Muhammadu Buhari, do you see him having a major change in the way and manner things are being run?
Joe, first, let me correct something. I was the spokesperson of Turaki Vanda, not the chairman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but with a greater sense of respect, I think that Mr. President has admitted at some point that he's slow with respect to taking actions. He has admitted that, and he has to do something about that. And the National Assembly has to make him or help him do something about that. That's point number one. Then point number two, when someone uses the word deteriorating, it suggests that the situation is getting worse. So let's not politicize or politique or romanticize that word. It means that the Senate President has admitted that the security situation in the country is getting worse. But you know what is important for me and to those who are listening to us is the fact that the leadership of the All Progressive Congress is advertently or inadvertently admitting that there is a failure in national security regime. And then what is important as we talk is the fact that they have owned up to the fact that they will help and they will talk to the executive, if you like, and nudge the executive and urge the executive to do something about overhauling the security architecture of this country. And that is what is most important now. Because whether we like it or not, those who politic with life and death do great and colossal injustice to this country. Like I said when I opened, the primary responsibility of government is the protection of life and property. And that the next leg is the fact that if we're all dead, who will you govern? And unfortunately, as you and I talk, a few years ago, we had territories taken. But now, we have beheadings everywhere. As you and I talk, we have bombs going up after Femi Adesina talked about bombs having gone silent. And I think that what we must do as a nation, whether you are the PDP or the APC or whatever tendency you belong to, we must understand that death is not partisan. The lives are indiscriminate of partisan affiliations. And we must understand that as a people, as a nation, we have to unite at the parlor where we make parlor's issues of national security a germane discourse.
All right.
We must be proactive and put primacy on the lives and properties of Nigeria.
Let me ask Mr. Ahmed Sajo the same question I asked you about the issue of paradigmship. Because in any case, what does party matter when we're talking about our lives anyways? But Mr. Sajo, when the National Assembly or the Senate President said we need a paradigm shift, an urgent one, that's what the word he used, urgent paradigm shift in our security architecture. Do you see that happening? Do you think that the president that you know will make that happen?
But not just the president, but all of us, like the professor said, we have no option. We need to have a paradigm shift in the manner we run our security. We need to improve on intelligence gathering. We need to improve in community policing. We need to improve even in our discourse of security. We need to stop this. Like he said, we need to come together. This is a challenge that affects everybody. Security challenges are not partisan. Security challenges do not respect individuals. They are not regional. They are not religious. They are just dangerous occurrences within a polity. And because of the danger inherent in the security situation, I think we need to come together, look at it.
So we close, Mr. Ahmed Sajo. I just need a quick response from you. Do you think that there is a need to declare a state of emergency on our security architecture?
I believe if it is the most necessary and absolute tool that is required to ensure that the nation is better secured, I think it's absolutely necessary. And in that way...
Just in 10 seconds, Professor, we need to declare a state of emergency on our security?
Absolutely. Overhaul the security architecture. Retire the service chiefs and bring people who are hungry to perform and protect us. That's the way to go.
Professor Christian Wakobia and Mr. Ahmed Sajo, thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. I sincerely thank you for your thoughts. But before we go, let's get two at least of your thoughts tonight, whatever you may be tweeting from. I get the first one from Hassan Cisse. He said, let there be a total overhaul of the military architecture and perhaps changing of security chiefs. Festus Akimboyewa says, Senate President should not only talk but act. The Senate has the constitutional power to do something about a security challenge. Likeman says the recent comments by the Senate President is a confirmation of the fact that our current service chiefs lack the innovative ideas of bringing the incessant kills to a halt. We cannot continue to doing the same thing and expect different results. That's how we leave it tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Chinua Kimale. Bye for now.